I want to welcome everybody. If you could all mute yourselves, that would be great. You don't have to put on your video either. I'm going to use mine just for the top to say, like, this is me. I'm Monica. I'm the founder and CEO of Listenwise, and I'm excited that you're all here to join us for this webinar. It's really considered more of an office hours. I want to hear your questions. I want to take your feedback. I want you to be participants in this as much as anything else. And I'm really excited today to be joined by Yvonne Gray, who's a sixth grade teacher from California. Yvonne, do you want to just say hello and just tell us generally how remote teaching is going for you?
Hi, it's a struggle right now because our students don't have their devices. So it's I'm just meeting the needs of a very small percentage of my students. So I'm really working on social emotional learning and trying to just meet the needs of who I have right now.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And I'd love for you all to get into that chat box right now and tell us where you're from, what grade you teach, and how it's going for you right now in this challenging time of remote learning. And use that chat box too to ask your questions and share your thoughts throughout this time together. So we're going to be talking briefly about how to access Listenwise in a remote setting, how to use it. We're going to be hearing an educator story. I'm sorry, it's not Laura. I did not change the name to Yvonne Gray. We're hearing from Yvonne Gray today, and we're going to be taking your reflections and questions. So first of all, the nuts and bolts of Listenwise, because I don't know your familiarity with the platform, so I thought I'd just do a quick review to say that we are a fully digital listening skills building tool with a collection of 2,000 podcasts from NPR and a lot of public radio stations around the country, as well as podcasters. So each audio story is about 3 to 5 minutes in length, and we have teaching resources built around them that are aligned with the curriculum and can be really easily assigned digitally. So if you haven't done so already, please sign up. It is free during the closures for COVID-19. So welcome to people who are just chiming in from Texas and upstate New York and all over the place. So very excited to have you with us today. So the other thing to know about Listenwise is once you've signed up for your account, it's really easy to create your classes, enroll your students, and get going. I'm not going to walk through that in this webinar because I want to encourage you to do that on your own, and I want to focus today on a lot of the cool things you can find on the platform to do right away. But it is a teacher-driven tool, so that it is important that you set up your classes and enroll your students. We are Google Classroom aligned, so we are integrated, I should say, with Google Classroom, and it's very, very easy. I'll get to a slide on that in a moment. So it makes everything easy to do. And you can also look at the third video here of the student experience to just get a sense of what your students will see as well when they're on Listenwise. And I see that we've got a lot of interesting types of teachers here. We've got a high school teacher who's an English teacher, a reading interventionist, which is a great use case for Listenwise because listening is such a critical part of literacy. It can really help with that. But first, let's kick it off and talk about the technology. So Listenwise can be used on any device, desktop, laptop, Chromebook, but what I want to focus on too is mobile device because as Yvonne just shared, you're having trouble getting devices for your students, and we know many students have smartphones. I'm wondering, Yvonne, are some of your students accessing assignments on their mobile device, or has your school district asked to just wait till everybody has something in hand? What are they using?
A lot of students are using mobile devices, and the ones that are definitely are successfully able to complete the assignments. And so that works.
Excellent. Yeah, it is very easy to do. Everything we'll show you today on a mobile device. As I mentioned, we're integrated with Google Classroom, so this makes it super easy to do single sign-on, import your roster, share assignments. We'll talk more about that too as we hop onto the platform. And now let's just talk about some practical strategies for remote teaching with Listenwise. I think the easiest way to get started is to go into the search bar with Listenwise and look for something that you are interested in teaching or sharing with your students. And I'm going to walk you through that live now. I'm going to pop over to the platform and show you the search bar and just, I'm not going to put anything in it because I want to show you the complete advanced search capabilities and walk you through it. So Listenwise has a collection of current events which are changed or added every day. And we have lessons for ELA, science, and social studies in elementary, middle, and high school. We're obviously going to be focusing on middle and high school today. So I'm going to unclick the elementary box. So you can start to make choices right here as you determine what kinds of stories you want to find before you even put in the search term. The other thing I want to point out is this new Lexile audio measure. This is a really exciting new feature that Metametrics developed. They're the makers of the Lexile text measure, which I'm sure you're familiar with, especially if you're an English teacher or a reading specialist. This is a new measure that is an indicator of the complexity of the audio passage. And it's developed on the same scale as the text measure so that eventually we'll be able to make some, draw some conclusions about a student's reading level as it relates to their listening level. What the research says is that students can listen 2 to 3 grade levels higher than they can read, especially in the lower grades. Now, if you're an 11th or 12th grade teacher, that might not be the case. Some of the more complex texts will be easier to read than listen to. But that means you've got to practice even harder on your students' listening skills. So this little pop-up box shows you how to understand these levels, either broadly in a low, medium, or high scenario. This is how we've grouped them previously in our platform, and when we added the audio measures, we stuck with this classification structure. Or you can look at recommended ranges of the audio measure by grade level. So this measure takes into account things like the text of the audio transcript, as well as the pacing and the type of audio that you're listening to. So it is a independently validated third-party measure of the audio complexity. So in this case, I'm just going to take out the low. We want to be focused on middle and high school, and so I just unclick the low box, and I really want to see all of the lessons and quizzes and current events. So lessons, many of them have quizzes, and current events have a quiz on every Wednesday. And also many lessons have additional support for language learners. So if I want to just put in a search term, like I'll just put in water and see where that gets us. Got a couple of lessons here that are fully resourced with both the quiz and scaffolding for language learners, as well as the ability to create an assignment. So I'm not going to walk you through all of this right now because I want Yvonne to take over and show us some of the things she's been doing. But one thing I will point out is a super easy way to share this with your students is this share audio button. Every piece of audio on Listenwise has this link, and it provides you with a link that you can copy, you can share to Google Classroom, and it provides the listening directly to your students. It does not include the transcript, which is in the student platform. So if you want this to be more of a reading support or support for language learners, you're going to want to assign the listening through the platform, or have the students log in and even choose what they want to listen to, because they can choose what they want to listen to. I'm just going to show you what the interactive transcript looks like so that you can get a sense of the power of combining audio with the transcript.
Minor survival will depend largely on their mental and physical ability to live for months in a confined space with no fresh air, no privacy. The University of Southern California. He joins us from Studio West in San Diego. And Professor Paulinkas, thanks very much.
So the audio and the transcripts stay synchronized as you can jump around either in the audio bar or in the transcript itself. The other thing I want to point out is this slower button. This slows down the audio by 20%. So I'm thinking for those of you who are on the call who are focused on reading intervention, this could be a really helpful feature for your students. So now I want to turn it over to Yvonne to talk about first current events as a tool that I know she was telling me she used in order to engage her students. So Yvonne, tell me about how you've used current events in a remote situation.
So I am trying to stick to as much normalcy as I can. So we always did Listenwise every Wednesday for the whole school year. And so keeping with that, I've been trying to just find some stories that are lighter, a little bit not so heavy. This stressful time for all of the kids as well as all of us. So one of the stories that I chose was this, how emojis are created. And so it was, something lighthearted, something that's, it's interesting. The kid draws the kids' attention. So this is one of the stories, and, it's really quick and easy as far as on my end to, go through as in prep, is to just find the story and, give it a listen, read the transcript. I do like to provide the transcript for the kids because it definitely gives them, a way to read, go in and reread and look. They have a quiz for the assignment, and so they can go back and look at the text if they're, especially the English learners.
Yeah, so let me show how you'd assign that. There are 2 ways to assign this, actually 3. You could easily just share the audio, click on that button. If you had not registered your students yet, you just wanted to give them something fun and interesting to listen to. The other 2 ways are on the platform. So one is what, Yvonne, you just said you did, which is you assigned a quiz. So this is our auto-scored multiple choice listening quiz. And as Yvonne said, she gave it to them with the transcript, right? You wanted to give them the full support. Was that why?
Correct, yes.
But you could choose not to, and you can also choose to give the transcript to some students and not to others. They won't see that. They'll see what you assign them. So here we're looking at a preview of the quiz, and I'm just going to show you how the transcript, again, it aligns with the audio.
Now a story about emojis, those tiny pictures you can add to your text or tweet.
So the student can read along, and they can also go back and read and look for clues to help answer the questions they're going to be getting in the quiz. So the quiz is really focused on a couple of main strands of literacy, which include being able to identify the main point, make an inference, select a vocabulary word, understand it in context. I'm just going to take a guess here so you can see what it looks like in the end, because I think one of the key things about this quiz in a remote learning situation is that at the end, the students will see how they did, and they'll see the right and wrong answers. And you will be able to see how they did immediately as well. So I've just completed the quiz, and I can see I did pretty good considering I was guessing on all but one because I know what the vocabulary word was. So I can see right away what I got right and what I got wrong. And then you, as the teacher who assigned it, are able to look in your classes and see the summary report. We're just going to look at some other data here, not for that quiz in particular, but you'll be able to see who completed the quiz and how they did on it, as well as even looking deep into the questions that they got right or wrong. Now, I'm wondering, Yvonne, when you assign these quizzes, are you going deep on the strands of listening, or are you looking for mostly just confirmation they've listened and comprehended what they were listening to?
Right now, I'm just focusing on just the central idea, and just to verify that they've done the listening. Previously it was more. I made more of a concerted effort to look at look at those inferences, look at finding the vocabulary, using the context to identify the meaning of the word. But another point about that as well is if they do have this set up with their Google Classroom, the scores go right into Google Classroom, so you don't even have to import them or anything. It just automatically reports the score into your Google Classroom, which is amazing.
Thank you for mentioning that. The text, and Dan has asked, can the text be downloaded as a PDF or Google document? Yes, it can. I'll show you in a moment here. I'm going to go to the next story that I know that Yvonne, you used. It's oh, wait a second.
It's just tiny. Oh.
No, it's because I need the thing to remember here is once you make a search categorization, it remembers it. And I believe this was a I'm just going to take off a few of the tick boxes because I know it is here, but it does not have a quiz. So just to remember, when you go back in to do another search and you don't find everything, make sure you're screening your advanced search criteria because it will remember what you did last time. This lesson doesn't happen to have a quiz yet, so it didn't show up in my first run of it. But I do want to show right here the way you can print or download the transcript is right here. You see these little icons? Print the transcript, download the transcript, lock the transcript, or you can even hide it so that if you're playing it in the classroom and you just want students to listen, but you're projecting this, you could, easily hide it as well. All right, so I know, Yvonne, you told me you use this and you followed a lot more of the teacher's guide. So now we're in a lesson and you'll see that there are the same assignment resources in the current events, which means listening comprehension questions, discussion theme questions. And in a lesson, we've got vocabulary and listening organizers. Tell me a little bit more about what you did with this one, and we can walk through the teacher's guide as well.
Okay. So I've been just creating video lessons. And so in this lesson for my students, I, again, was really looking for something that was, I mean, this is a serious topic, but it's something that hopefully will help the kids and dealing with empathy. And so I began with, in this teacher's guide, I started with these, there's a sequence here where for activating the prior knowledge. And so I just really used those ideas right there in my video and introduced the story that way. There is in the assignment resources, there's a link to the website about the Elephant Man. And so I showed the images that were there and kind of discussed that a little bit in my video. And then also I used the listening comprehension questions.
Yeah, let me show how you would assign those. So as I said, every lesson and quiz has these, and they can all be assigned here with this button called Create an Assignment. And this will walk you through a 5-step process to create an assignment using not only the listening comprehension questions, discussion theme questions, but also assigning some of those materials like that website that we just looked at, as well as the listening organizers. So in the first step, you want to see, it is automatically checked that you'll give your students the transcript. And if you don't want to do that, you have to uncheck it. And also there's a toolbar that I'll show you what that means in a moment when we finish completing this activity. So have you used any of the graphic organizers? Because every single one has this language identification organizer, which is really a metacognitive strategy around keeping track of the listening. I'm wondering if you've used that one, Yvonne.
I haven't used that one, but I've used some of the like the T-chart and some of these, like what you're showing here. I've used those with, and I just use them with all my students. I mean, I don't know, like 60% of my students are English learners, so it doesn't hurt the other students. So I'll use them with all the students.
That's great. When you get to the question part, they are pre-populated, but you can delete and you can add whatever you want, or you could even create your own questions. It's very flexible. And then materials, like let's include that website because Yvonne said she was using that to show pictures to help with the understanding. And then we'll just write the instructions here. And then you're ready to assign it either to the whole class or to selected students. So you're able to either assign to 1 student, 5 students, or select all of your students and assign it to them. So now it is done. It's assigned. It took just 2 minutes. And if you want to look at it, I'm going to click on it. This view at the top is my view as a teacher, so I can see whether or not students have started or not. It goes from red, yellow to green. And when I make comments, they will appear in the feedback area as well. And then below that is what the student sees. So this is the student view. We gave it to them with the transcript, so it's correct.
A new children's novel begins in.
They can listen right from there. There's the website, the vocabulary, and they're able to fill everything in and save their work as they go, and then complete the assignment and send it to you. One thing I want to point out here, I mean, Yvonne, I don't know whether your students have used this much or not, but this toolbar is so important if you have English language learners, because if they're unable to understand a word such as incident, you can highlight that word and it can be read out loud to them.
Incident.
And it can also be defined in English, Spanish, and as a picture dictionary. Of course, incident is a little hard to picture. But that's just a bar that pops up only in your student view that gives them a lot more support. And I love that Megan just shared, she really likes using the language identification organizer with her students because it keeps them accountable. And she even sneaks in phrases that aren't in the listening. I appreciate that. That's a great idea. I do know that, the way we build the listening organizer is to keep on track with the listening. I'm just going to show you that again. But if you wanted to add additional phrases that aren't there to trip up your students a little bit, you can feel free to do that. So that's another way to quickly assign it and get. And now I think you said you also focus a lot of vocabulary words in this too, right, Yvonne?
Right. So in my introduction in the video, before they had even listened, I took a few of those words and just kind of tried to give them the definition in my introduction, just kind of sneaking the words in, not just, not defining them, but giving them the definition within the context of my explanation of the story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. It makes perfect sense. And I think you shared with me that you do Listenwise on a particular day of the week. What day do you do it on, and why, and what do the kids think about it?
I do it on Wednesday, and I don't really have a reason for picking that day, but that is when we just every day for the whole school year we've been every Wednesday, and the students, I think they've learned that 3 out of 5 isn't that great. So they're learning at the beginning of the year that they have to pay attention, and I start out at the beginning of the year with the transcript, and then by this time of the year, January, February, they don't get the transcript anymore. So it's I kind of try to wean them off of the transcript.
Right, and you're in California where they are tested on listening in their SBAC, the CASP score test right. Listening. So that is important to keep them off of that. I know that might not be happening this year, I think, but it is typically a good way to practice. I'm going to show you another new feature we just added that I think really is fun to do and is perfect for this engagement that you were talking about, Yvonne, just getting kids to have something light and interesting to listen to. We've added this feature called Weird News. And these stories are just kind of like social media thingy, just things that the kids are going to talk about. And what we do in the way we've designed the curriculum around it is focused on vocabulary. These stories are only 30 seconds long. But in those 30 seconds, you're going to hear these 3 words: guilt, praise, and soothing. So in our assignment resources, we focus the listening comprehension and discussion theme questions around those vocabulary words. So how does the podcast for dogs help owners feel less guilt? How might dogs be affected by praise? So before you have them listen, you might just say, hey, listen out for these 2-3 words. And then I'm going to ask you a question using those words. So let's just listen to this whole story because it's really short and fun and memorable.
Good morning, I'm Noelle King. Do you ever feel bad about leaving Spot home alone? Well, Spotify has something that might ease your guilt.
Hello, you.
My dog's favorite podcast features dog-directed praise and stories from actors like Ralph Ineson, along with soothing sounds and relaxing music. Spotify says if your pet listens, they may bark less and sleep more. And who doesn't want that?
really are the best dog in the whole wide world.
So we know from our user statistics that kids love stories about animals. And, there are a lot of weird news stories that include animals, but there are also a lot of fun ones that, some are even related to this coronavirus crisis. This is about students who designed a Minecraft of their school. So these are meant to just be highly engaging, easy to listen to, and you can create the assignment right here. As you can see, it's a shorter process because it is only assigning the listening discussion and comprehension questions, but you could just have them answer 2 questions after listening to this in a remote situation. So that's another really fun and easy way to use Listenwise. I think I'm going to go back to the presentation for a moment to just share with you a little bit about if you go deeper and you want to be assigning on the platform and looking at what student responses look like. This is an example of what a student who writes the answers response on the platform and what your feedback could look like.